know, packing up and headed to a brand new lake, it can be pretty intimidating. There's a whole lot of factors that could get in your way of finding success. Well, today, we're gonna share with you the #1 greatest tip that'll help any angler find success on a brand new body of water. Today, on Captain's Corner. That's right, fishing on a brand new lake, it can be pretty intimidating because there's so many different things that can come into play onto whether you find success that day or not. Now, whether you're a tournament angler or just vacationing and you're finding yourself on a brand new to you lake, there's a whole bunch of things that are gonna have to go through your mind on how you're gonna find those fish that day, because we literally have dozens of techniques. We have hundreds of different lure styles, and when you throw in color combinations, rods, reels, lines, you're talking thousands of different combinations to find that one thing that might actually be working that day on that lake. So when you got all these different options, all these different factors, and all these different combinations, how do you start on a brand new body of water? Well, there's no one better to ask than the pros that put $100,000 on the line each time. We caught up with a couple of the KastKing pros up on Mille Lacs Lake up here in Minnesota and asked them, on a new lake to you, what's the first thing you're gonna do?
You know, being a professional bass fisherman, I fish coast to coast, north to south, all over the country. And when we go to a new body of water, one of the biggest challenges is figuring out how to approach it, what to throw. And one of the key things to do is do your homework and find out what the key forage is for the fish on that body of water in that particular time of the year. You know, you've got bluegill, you've got gizzard shad, threadfin shad, blueback herring, you got crawfish. So, you know, there's a variety of different species that bass will feed on, and knowing what the bass are feeding on before you get there, that'll help you, save you some time, and clue you in a little bit sooner on what you need to be throwing.
You're talking one of the most basic concepts in fishing, and that is to match the hatch. You want your bait to look like whatever's natural in that area, wherever you're fishing. If I'm in South Louisiana, I want to fish a crawfish style bait. If I'm fishing an area where they got white birds chasing shad, I want to fish a shad looking bait. Anywhere you go catch smallmouth, perch is gonna be a big deal. Yellow perch is a big deal. That's what they eating on. So I want to match the hatch. I want to use a bait that looks something like a yellow perch. So that's just the easy way to cut down the learning curve. I'll find out what the fish are doing. Is just match the hatch with your bait. Match your bait to the natural forage and natural feed that the fish are biting on in that area. That'll cut down your time finding them and help you put a few more fish in the bowl.
It's just that simple. Match the hatch. No doubt, there's a lot of different forage in any lake, but according to these guys, the first thing they needed to figure out was what forage were they keying in on. And it just so happened that both of these guys have never fished Mille Lacs before. So we asked them, what's the first thing you looked for when you fished this new lake?
Up here at Mille Lacs, I knew doing my homework that it's a predominant crawfish fishery. They eat a lot of crawfish here. And I noticed in practice, as you're catching fish, may not have had the key baits, but you're still fighting fish to the boat, and you notice they're spitting out these big crawfish, and you'd catch one and you'd have a crawfish down his throat. So when it came down to the tournament time, I found the perfect setup. What I was fishing a flat. It came from about 8 or 10 feet of water that had scattered rock on it up to about 3 feet of water. And once you got to about that 5-foot range up to 3 feet of water, there was scattered grass as well. Those smallmouth were sitting in that grass, feeding on the crawfish that are up in the rocks and all that. What I found a great bait, and the way I caught them, was this KastKing KVD 1.5 square bill. But as you can see, it looks just like a crawfish. And you know, it was really a good way to match the hatch. Once I got this dialed in, I was able to just, you know, work around this flat, fan cast around, and I'd hit little pockets of smallmouth there and catch them good on the 1.5. The setup I'm throwing here, this is the KastKing Speed Demon Pro. This is a new rod we've got, one I designed for square bills and smaller crankbaits. This is a 7/4 crankbait, so it's got a nice light tip to it, but you know, good backbone. You can throw a square bill a mile with it. I've got it paired up with the Bassmaster Elite. This is the 8-4-1, and I've got 14-pound gamma fluorocarbon on here, and it's just a perfect setup. The square bill, looking like a crawfish, was a great way to match the hatch.
So anytime you're dealing with smallmouth, yellow perch come into play when you talk about matching the hatch. This week I found the best way to match the hatch was to catch them on a crankbait. This is an MR6. It's a medium running crankbait, lightweight, and my setup to throw this crankbait is a 7'3" Speed Demon Pro bladed jig rod. It's got a lot of tips, got some backbone, It handles the weight of this crankbait really well. Great casting rod. It's just my favorite rod to throw this style crankbait on. Throwing that on 12-pound covert fluorocarbon, which is really important when you're bumping rocks. That line is tough and it handles those rocks really well. The reel is the Bassnet Elite 8 1-to-1. When I'm smallmouth fishing, throwing these smaller crankbaits, I want a really fast reel, something I can reel really quick, so that 8 1-to-1 is important for me. If I was fishing a bigger crankbait, I had to get down, it pulled a lot more water, I'd go to 6 1-to-1 Bassnet Elite. Speed, I want speed on that crankbait, so 8 1-to-1 Bassnet Elite. That's the rod, that's the reel, that's the line, and that's how I'm matching the hatch to catch smallmouth this week at my last.
So that's it. It's really just that simple. All the different combinations that these guys have at their fingertips, all the electronics, all the tools of the trade, all the different lures and techniques that they could be throwing. The first thing that they looked for on a new lake was the forage that they were feeding on. Match the hatch. So pay attention to your environment. See what they're actually keying in on, whether it's bait fish or crayfish. If you can figure that out, then you can fine-tune your presentation to find the best success on any body of water, even if it's new to you. Well, there you go, guys. I hope that helped, and I hope you learned a little something. And if you did, make sure you smash the heck out of that like button and subscribe to the channel, because there's plenty more coming right here on Captain's Corner.